Welcome to Insights. I'm Dick Goldberg, and our subject today, finding your life purpose. What is the most important place to focus your energy? Is it helping others, making money, being a loving person? And if you figure it out, what your purpose is, then what do you do? Well, with us to try to figure that out is Patricia Clason. She is the director for the Center for Creative Learning in Milwaukee. She is a co-author with, among others, Stephen Covey and Jack Canfield of Speaking of Success. She's for many years been a lecturer and workshop leader on life management issues, subjects like from time management to stress management to the subject we're talking about today. Thanks for being with us, Patricia.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Patricia, let's start with the obvious. When you say life purpose, what do you mean?
Well, life purpose is a topic that is actually just now coming into vogue, in a sense, if you would. And if you look in the dictionary, when you look at the definition of the word purpose, what you will read is that it is the primary goal, aim, or objective. So one might think that when we're talking about life purpose, we're talking about the most important goal in life. However, I think it's much more than that in my experience and in my work with it over all these years. I like the French phrase, raison d'être, reason for being.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what purpose is all about. It's our reason for being. If we had a goal that was our purpose, let's just say the goal is to, for a business person to be president of the company.
Yeah.
And they make that goal and then retire. And then what? Then there's no reason for being.
Yeah.
So while the purpose for a term paper may be the primary goal, for the length of the life of the term paper, for humans, life is indeterminate. We don't know how long we're going to live. And so we need to have something that will continue to exist as long as we exist.
Okay. Well, that's beautifully put. Beautifully put. And if you had a guess, what percentage of people listening have figured out their life purpose?
2%, 3%. There really are not that many people who stop to think about it.
Why do you think that is? We're all here for a limited amount of time?
Because we're a society, generally speaking, at least here in the United States, that can tend to be very goal and material oriented. And so we tend to focus more on goals and accomplishments as opposed to a reason for our presence here. And the other thing is nobody teaches us that.
Except you're about to.
Well, I will do my best.
You know, 25, 30 years ago, I did a student film on this very subject. It interested me, and I went to a big mall, and I set up a camera and mic, and I asked about 40 people the question, what is your life purpose? And guess what I found? What they said.
I can't imagine.
I don't know. Is what they're
that would make
I
sense.
don't know. But I said, well, give it some thought. What do you think your life purpose is? Then almost all of them said to be happy. Is that legit?
Well, in a certain sense, from the way that I think about purpose, it could be legit, as you say. Because when I have people look at the idea of purpose and their reason for being, I have them look at what I would call the substantive qualities of life, the ever-present, never-changing qualities of life. And I believe not happiness, actually, but joy and peaceful, pleasant existence is one of the substantive qualities of life itself. And then our human mind gets in the way and starts putting all kinds of other things on that. So words like abundance, joy, happiness, beauty. For example, an artist might say, my purpose is to see and create beauty.
That's a good one. You can live with that forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're too old to paint or whatever, you can still see it, unless you can't see.
And that's about seeing those substantive qualities of life or connecting with those qualities. There's a series of books called The Course in Miracles that came out about 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. And there's a one-liner in there that really meant a lot to me, and that one-liner was, at one-ment, or atonement, as we usually see the word, is the natural purpose of the children of God. And how I read that was, first of all, the different phrasing of the word atonement, because the original Greek of the word atonement means to become one with. So atonement in the spiritual tradition was about making up for errors so we could be one with again. But it became synonymous with punishment and pain. So I hyphen it so we think of what it really means. So at one moment, getting back to that state of oneness or connectedness.
To yourself? With
yourself, with the life energy that permeates all things, to a higher power, if that's a person's belief system. That the idea is to reconnect with that sense of connectedness and oneness. And in experiencing that, we experience the beauty of life itself.
This is getting pretty spiritual. I'm wondering, in terms of maybe bringing it to a little more meat and potatoes for
sure
everybody, people like me, what are the benefits of figuring out your life purpose? Why bother?
Purpose gives us focus. For many people, I like to think of it as a highway. And each one of us has a reason for being, I believe. And so let's just play with the metaphor. The reason for being is to travel down in Wisconsin, I-94, from one place to another.
That's a big highway for people who don't know.
Whatever the beginning or the end is. Yes, an interstate highway. So my purpose is to travel that highway. But if nobody tells me that's what my purpose is, I'm going to go back and forth and back and forth and travel all over the United States looking for what am I supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So purpose helps us to focus. And then I think of goals as street signs on that highway that help us figure out how well we're doing and are we still on track.
And what is the difference between your purpose and your values?
Your values express your purpose or reflect your purpose. So if a person is aware of their values, if they've identified their values, that would help them to probably to further define their purpose because it's reflected in there.
Okay. Now, I guess the big question is, well, I want to get back to the benefits before I get to the how-to. I don't mean to tease everybody about how do you find your purpose, but let's look at someone who's successful in Western terms.
Okay.
They've got a career that's done very well. They're very proud of it. Nice family. Why do they need a purpose? Why do they have to define it?
If life is going well and we're feeling a sense of satisfaction, it may well be that a person has, unbeknownst to them, found that purpose.
But they never defined it.
But
they're
they
living
just
it, but they haven't defined
right.
it. But they keep going back to that highway as you speak, just intuitively.
But then for other people, they feel a sense of wandering, a sense of lack of focus. So choosing a purpose, almost like going back to the highway metaphor, doesn't matter which interstate I choose. I'm just going to choose one and then observe how it feels, how it works, how it fits for me. So purpose becomes a focusing point. If you, one of my favorite other metaphors for this is the phrase, life is just a bowl of cherries.
Okay.
So if I took the bowl out from under the cherries really fast, what would happen to all the cherries?
They're in trouble. Down they go.
They're all over the floor. You step on them, cherry juice on the carpet, all that good stuff. So the bowl becomes the focal point, or the harmonizing, or whatever word you want to use, keeping those cherries together.
Am I also hearing that pick a purpose, try it, and if it doesn't work, pick a different purpose, but have a purpose?
Experiment with it. I believe that people go through several phases when they make the choice to learn about purpose, and the first one is just simply to become aware of of the fact that there is such a thing. In fact, I encourage people to start there. Say, my purpose is to become aware of my purpose. Because the minute I choose that, I have a defining point.
Okay.
I have some kind of a context.
And a struggle.
Sure.
An existential struggle. Why am I here? Instead of, I was doing fine, I'd go to work, I'd come home, now I got to figure out why I'm here and what my purpose is.
We're just an adventure.
Okay, frame it that way.
But it is a discovery process. It is a learning process, and it's a testing process to figure out what fits. So first we need to become aware of our purpose, and then we begin to experience moments of being on purpose, which I call being in the right place at the right time, successfully engaged in the right activity.
Okay.
Because I've noticed about life that when people are on purpose, many things fall into place for them and happen with less struggle, with less effort. So becoming aware, experiencing, and then to actualize their purpose, to actually make it purposefully a reality.
So are you picturing a lot of people just wandering through life kind of aimlessly, just going here and there without knowing why, and kind of not leading a meaningful life, and that if they could figure out their purpose, they'd lead a more meaningful life?
I believe that that's true, that people would lead more meaningful lives. There are an awful lot of people who grow up following somebody else's dream, the parent's dream, the teacher's dream, what they were told they were supposed to do. Or maybe they have a talent of some kind, and they follow the path of that talent without really understanding why they're doing that, and sometimes without being drawn to it. Some people have many talents. I could be a bookkeeper. I can be very good with numbers. I'd be miserable being a bookkeeper, but I'd be a good bookkeeper.
Okay, so competence isn't always a clue to what your purpose is.
That's correct.
Wow.
And then there are a lot of people who use their talent as that clue because it brings them joy to do it.
Isn't that a sign you're on track? You're on the right highway?
It is.
So if you're competent and love it, bingo.
Yes.
You're in a good spot. What about money? I mean, again, you don't know the answer to this, but what percentage of Americans, I would think particularly men, look at money as the goal?
Oh, as the goal, a tremendous amount.
Or the purpose?
Well, I don't think they use that word purpose.
No.
They use the word goals.
But if you look at their life de facto.
Yes, they probably have money as their purpose or reason for being, to have money, to have more money. There are many people who it's never enough, and so they need more, they need more, they need more. And I think a factor in that is that it doesn't really satisfy them.
Do they know that?
Many of them do on a somewhat subconscious level, because they just have this sort of about life, It's okay, but I need... and what I often see people doing is taking life pleasures, physical pleasures, and that satisfies them for a while, but it's never enough, and that's usually the clue. If the money's not enough, if the pleasures aren't enough, and they're still not feeling satisfied, whole, joyous, and just simply about who they are, for me that's a pretty good clue that they've never looked at the idea of purpose and aren't really clear about what they're here for.
Am I hearing shallow, empty?
Possibly. Not always. Okay. Sometimes just what I call sleeping.
Sleepwalking through life? Okay, let's stop that right now, because you're going to tell us how to find your life purpose, and where do you begin?
A great place to begin that's not too spiritual, or to use a word you used earlier, sort of existential. A great place to begin is with that definition of being in the right place at the right time, successfully engaged in the right activity. Most people, if they look back on their lives, will find that they've had moments like that. They've been doing something that they enjoyed doing, and the whole thing worked out easily. Or they had an idea about something, and the project fell into place easily and met their goals or exceeded their goals. So looking at those kinds of moments, even sometimes the moments as simple as, when did you feel joy? Because that's what you feel when you're in the right place at the right time, successfully engaged in the right activity. It's like, this feels good.
What about that term, my mind lost it, when you lose track of time, you're so engaged, flow, when you're in flow.
Flow definitely is a good indicator of being on purpose.
Yeah. In your workshops, which you've done, 120 million, thousand, what are some of the things you hear people saying about, that was it, that was when I was right on the right spot you're talking about, Patricia? What kind of activities do you hear?
Sometimes it's as simple as a person said, I thought maybe I might like this kind of job, and I got hired on the first interview, the first application I put in. Or
what does that say? This is right for them because they were so great at the interview?
It was a clue. There was something about all of that that just locked right into place for them. Sometimes I hear people talk about mostly the opposite of that experience. It's like, well, I have my degree and I just can't find a job in my degree, and I really thought that's what I wanted to do. And then I have them just start doing some writing, some stream of consciousness writing, and usually what comes out of that is that they've been focused more on the things and not on the reason for being, not on the why.
What do you mean by things?
Well, the material, I wanted that career, I got that degree because I thought it would make me this amount of money, or I would have this kind of prestige, or I could be well known in the world.
Versus how it feels when you're doing it? Mm-hmm. So you got to look at how it feels when you're doing it.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, so someone's got a job right now as they're listening to you. What should they think about that job to see if they're on purpose?
Do you enjoy going to work every day? Even when you're physically tired, when it's been stressful, do you still have a feeling like that was really good? I was valuable, I was productive, I really enjoyed that process.
Engaged?
I was engaged, yeah, that's a good word these days.
Wasn't looking at the clock to see how much time's left?
That would be another good one.
How about, I love this one, darn, it's Monday, or 2 days till Friday. What does that tell you?
That's usually not the person who's on purpose.
Right.
A lot of the folks I know who have a sense of what their purpose is are people who, if asked, would work 24/7. Not quite literally, but the idea of they just love what they do. It feels like they're on a constant vacation.
It just came to me. Are entrepreneurs usually on purpose because they don't look at their clock?
I think some of them are. There's a few out there who are just in entrepreneurs for the money piece, but a lot of them are out there because it's what they love, whether it's building the business and the creation that they love, or a particular kind of business. But there's something that they just love doing it.
Another percentage question. I'm sorry to keep bugging you with these, but what percentage of people working for a paycheck you think are in a job where it's on purpose? They've got it.
I would say approximately 20%.
I've heard that, yeah. So 80% are in a job that really doesn't fit their heart.
Mm-hmm. We hear the 80-20 rule thing a lot, and there actually was a research study that was done on people and their jobs and how they felt about their jobs and success. And this particular person studied 200 people over 20 years. And what he found was that 183 of them went to work doing things they did not like doing just to make money, to maybe get money to go on a vacation that they really didn't enjoy because they knew they had to
come back to work.
Right.
Not good.
The other 17, so this is where the approximate 20% comes in, the other 17 people in the study were doing things they loved doing. And at some point in those 20 years, were in the right place at the right time, and something clicked for them, and they reached a level of prosperity and abundance that was different for all of them. It wasn't, the researcher didn't have a number, but each person said, yeah, I was in the right place at the right time, and this happened, and now I'm doing this, and I love it even more.
Wow. Okay, so one thing you think about is when it felt this is right.
Correct.
When you were in flow. You just lost track of time and it just fit for you. Any other clues to finding your purpose?
Well, when things are coming to you, I mean, the flow thing is something you feel internally, but when the world around you supports that, when you don't have to effort a lot at getting the pieces to help it come together. So one of the tools I suggest people use is if you really have to struggle at that, if it feels like you're constantly beating your head up against the wall with it, stop and look.
Yeah.
Why did you choose this? What is it really all about? If we think of the bowl of cherries, and the cherries is the goal, and the bowl is the purpose that helps create the container, they're working at cherries that have already fallen on the floor.
So it's a sign you're off purpose?
Right.
What if you're good at it and you aren't getting bad results and people are coming to you? You still could be off purpose.
It's possible.
But it's a sign. If you are good at it, people come to you, it comes easily to you, that's one good sign.
That's usually a sign that you've either fallen into it or you've figured it out.
Okay. Anyone listening, not anyone, but I'd say 80% of the people listening to you are thinking, yeah, great, find your life purpose and go do it. You can't do that. You don't get jobs. You don't get careers you love. That's just new age, airy-fairy talk. We got to eat. We got to work. Do you believe it is possible to align your passion, your life purpose, with a living for most people?
I believe it could be possible, yes. I
Could
see
be
it
possible.
happening. Well, I say that could be because I understand what people are saying when they say, well, I just got to get a job, I got to pay the bills. But they're operating at a level of survival. And I think it is possible for people to move beyond that. And I see more and more and more of that going on as we actually stop to think about it, talk about it, encourage people to look at it that way. Not just what are you good at, but what fulfills you.
Okay. So let's say someone has a job, a survival job. They are a clerk. They don't like it. They have a bachelor's in English, and they say, Patricia, can I bend your ear for an hour? Where do you begin with this person?
I would ask them what talents they feel that they have and what gives them a sense of satisfaction and what causes them to feel fulfilled if
And
they've
they
ever
say
felt
to you,
fulfilled.
well, let me tell you, I love writing poetry, and I love reading novels, and I don't know how to make a living because I've written poetry and nobody wants it. I can read it for free at a coffee house downtown sometimes. But that's my passion. When I'm reading my poetry and writing it, and when I write short stories and when I read others, I'm so happy.
So I would brainstorm with them, what are other careers, what are other jobs that help you touch on that you like to do. Maybe in the beginning, it's like nobody's a success overnight, even though we think they are.
Yeah.
Every person you talk to will have a story that says it's much longer than an overnight success. So the poems they're writing aren't being paid for.
Right.
Nobody's buying them. But keep writing the poems. Look for jobs where you get to use your language skills. A way to think about that is that there's certain touchstones, there's certain qualities about those things. In this case, reading the novels and writing the poems. Look at what things about that help you to feel satisfied. How can you get little pieces of that? Because as a person gets more and more of those little pieces, they get stronger in that.
Okay, now that's kind of
Focus.
career counseling, but that's not purpose counseling, I don't think. Finding your life purpose. You're saying, well, use the stuff you like and let's see if we can find a career that touches some of that a little bit or somewhat. But how does this help a person figure out his life purpose?
Well, because as they play with the touchstones, they start getting a clearer sense of what about that it is that really is on target for them, that really is purpose. I mean, when I first started the process of looking at my life purpose, it probably took me 2 or 3 years
No kidding?
before I really had a definition that I went, okay, that's me.
You have a very unique career and unique life, but would you be willing to share with us what is your life purpose?
My purpose, as I talk about it now, is to realize and actualize my mastery.
Oh my.
And that has a very special meaning for me. When I think about mastery, I think about living at a very high level. People, when we think of someone who's a master of fine arts, we think of someone who is very accomplished. And I have certain talents that I have been using all the last 40, 50 years that I've been doing a lot of my work. And now it's about taking those talents and really actualizing them, sharing them with other people in the world.
Okay.
So in the beginning it was like, why am I here? And it was, well, what are my talents and what do I want to do?
So what you're
I don't
doing
know
at
if
this
that's
minute,
making sense for folks.
sort of. What you're doing at this very second then is right on purpose.
It's absolutely on purpose for me.
Okay. People are still struggling as they listen here, trying to figure out their
They
purpose.
are.
Yeah. So the 80% that are in jobs that don't make them happy, can they look to their hobbies and interests as a clue?
I would think so, yes. That would be a great place to start looking, especially if it's things that they've taken up doing that they really enjoy doing. What about that is what they really enjoy?
Okay. and the skepticism, I just feel it coming on real thick. That's my hobbies. That's not how you make a living.
You know, there are millions of people who have turned hobbies into businesses and have made fortunes.
That's why I was hitting at the entrepreneur before. Like if your hobby, I love stamps. There's a way of making business out of that, right?
You could be a stamp collector, stamp seller, and totally enjoy doing all that all the time and see yourself as somebody who's bringing beauty to the world through all these unique and different stamps and bringing satisfaction into people's lives through the collection process.
Okay. And how does the internet fit in? I bet you've never been asked this question. How does it fit in with finding your life purpose, the internet?
Well, one of the joys about the internet is that it allows us to get more information. Okay. And there are teachers out there now who have chosen to talk only about the subject of purpose. That's their primary focus. Tim Kelly is one of them. And the internet allows us to do searches and get data in ways we never could before. So searching about the idea of purpose, there are sites out there where there are activities that you can do, little formulas you can work with to sort of test things out. And I think one of the great things about the internet is that it allows us to test without necessarily big losses.
Yeah.
It has really given us a whole new level of playing in the world that way. So, like the person who wants to write.
Yes.
Start a blog. Play with the blog. Do the writing. And see what happens with it. Who knows where it will go?
Of course, the number of people working for themselves keeps increasing as a percentage of Americans. So I would think, from what you're saying, that this is an avenue for some people who can't figure out how to translate their purpose to a living, to begin on a small basis.
Yep, to test and play with it.
Okay. Now, I don't know what's in your mind, and I may have neglected to ask important questions. Is there some information about finding your life purpose we haven't touched on that's important to hear in the closing couple minutes here? Patricia's pondering.
I think that what's really important is that people need to allow it to be a process. I have yet to meet anyone who, in working with them, instantaneously says, okay, yeah, that's it, that's my purpose, okay, I got it. It usually takes it's a process of playing with and testing out and observing life and being aware. And so I encourage people to just start with being aware of purpose. And make your purpose to become aware of my purpose.
And as part of that process, thinking back in the last few years of your life, again, when you felt great doing something. Okay. And if people want to get any more information, are there any books you'd recommend on this subject?
Well, I'll just generally recommend Tim Kelly's work, Kelley. Again, search on the internet. For those who want a more spiritual focus on it, Carolyn Myss, Myss, and her book on what she calls sacred contracts. Dan Millman, Millman, wrote a book on finding your purpose. I'm not sure that's the exact title. So I'm good at authors' names more than I am at titles.
And if they want to start working on this right after they hear this podcast, can they sit with a journal and start writing about it? Is it a nightly activity they do?
Actually, it would be great for them to just, after listening to this, to sit down and start writing, doing that stream of consciousness writing without any judgment, to just write down everything that they're thinking and then go back and look at it and start pulling it apart. Look at the hows, the specifics. Those are usually goals. The whys, or the reasons behind why they're attracted to the hows, usually have to do with purpose, and they can discover a lot with that.
You know, it would be really cool if you would just rattle off some purposes that people have figured out under your tutelage.
That is not easy to do, Dick, because I am the kind of person who generally, when I work with people one-on-one, forget what I've worked with them on purpose because of confidentiality and things like that. So I don't retain a list of them.
In closing, I wonder if you could give us some final guidance for this pursuit of finding your purpose.
Well, one way to start is to use a very simple formula, And that formula basically is this. First of all, my purpose is to use my, and then fill in the blank with different talents or things that bring you joy, by, and then how you will use those talents so that, or to create something in the world. So my purpose is to use my talents of speaking and compassion by teaching other people and doing coaching to create more people in the world who have joy in life.
Great. And with that, I thank you, Patricia Clason, and I hope you'll join us on the next edition of Insights.